and hopefully we should be, most of the people I think are dialed in already, but hopefully we should be going through a brief PowerPoint today on 10 gig, and then the beauty of doing this event is we've actually got all the products working in a lab environment. So there'll be some questions as we go through. I think all the attendees are currently on mute, but you'll be able to raise your hand. We've got organisers here that you can ask questions to. We can try and answer those as we go through. Try and go through the session. We are recording this as well, so if you've got any colleagues that want to see this afterwards, then you should just be able to ask for a link afterwards, and we'll email that out as well. So, like I said, my name is Paul Wilson. My role here is Sales Director, but also a very technical slant on what these products do. So I've got about a 12, 13-page PowerPoint, and then we're going to dive straight into the products and kind of show you how these things work together. So to kick off, what I'm going to be showing you today is all around test visibility and control of 10 gig networks. We've got 4 vendors, each taking a different slant at 10 gig. We have Network Instruments, who Open Reality have worked with for over 15 years. We've got, and that's a traffic analysis tool, so we'll be doing forensic capture, rewind, and diagnosis of problems anywhere from 10 meg all the way up through to 10 gig. Spirent is a relatively new product. Spirent as a company aren't a new company, but Spirent have launched in the last year or so a box that's designed for the medium-sized organization. Typically their customers are telcos, equipment manufacturers doing very high-level, very in-depth traffic generation tests. And what this market has missed for quite a while is the ability to do traffic generation at an affordable price up to 10 gig. And that is what the Spirent Axon box does. So we'll be capturing traffic with the Network Instruments tools. We'll be generating traffic with the Spirent tools. Moving down to the bottom left, we have Apposite Technologies, and what they are providing for us is our WAN environment. So they're unique in this section. They can already go to 40 gig, but actually the ability to control bandwidth, latency, loss up to 10 gig is actually proving very popular. Probably doing about 2 or 3 units a month of those at 10 gig. Various from enterprises to councils, all sorts of people want to test equipment before they deploy it live, and that's really the environment that Apposite gives. And then finally, Blue Coat, probably the best known name on here. We've been a partner with Blue Coat or its predecessor, Packeteer, probably since 2006. Sold an awful lot of packet shapers, and there's a new hardware range out which decreases the price significantly over the old model set, but also gives them the scalability now to go all the way up to 10 gigs. So I think we've actually sold one, but we've actually got the only demo unit for 10 gig in the country in our lab at the moment. So if you actually think what we're going to be doing today is putting all those things together, of showing capture, generation, bandwidth, latency, and loss, and then also showing through shaping, etc. It should be a good session. So like I said, the PowerPoint's going to be fairly short and sweet, and then hopefully I can do a quick demo of each. Now these demos are not designed to be long, in-depth demos. It's designed to give a flavor of what these products are capable of doing. So if you like one of the products and you require a more in-depth one-to-one demo, then obviously speak to your account manager afterwards and arrange a one-on-one session, and we can show you the products in a lot more detail. So I've pretty much introduced them very quickly, but just to go through them in a tiny bit more detail. Network Instruments are leaders in application performance. So the age-old problem of it's running slow and the ability to diagnose that back to a client, a server, the network in between is incredibly powerful. And actually the challenge gets significantly greater the faster network speeds go, because you need to be able to capture all those packets, write them all to disk. This device is a Sky Plus box for your network. It will record everything and then give you the ability to rewind to a moment in time, and that's what that high-speed forensic capability does. As well as giving network application visibility, it'll give you full reporting, and depending on which unit, the unit we've got will do 10 gig capture to wire speed, 10 gig capture. They actually do a 10 gig wire speed, so that's 20 gigs of sustained traffic, which the capture cards aren't necessarily the problem. It's the writing all that data to disk that becomes the big issue. Apposite technologies, already mentioned this, cost-effective WAN emulation up to 40 gig, control all the parameters you want, bandwidth, latency, loss, and jitter, in a very easy-to-use interface. And this is a real simple product. It's probably the first product I've dealt with in 20 years where people literally pick up the phone and call up and place an order. Sometimes they have a demo, sometimes they don't. It literally does what it says on the tin. They have boxes that start at about £1,500 for little units you want to put in your laptop bag, right the way through up to 40 gig units and just about everything in between. So we'll be talking you through that a little bit later on. Spirent Communications, that's going to be our hardware platform today that's generating traffic. The first unit that went out this year went out to Formula One. If you think what they do every time they go to a circuit of Americas this weekend, is they put a 10 gig network out around the circuit that sends all the data and the video back to their portable data center. And what they need to do when they bring that network up is ensure that it performs at the rate it requires. So the Axon is a very quick and simple device aimed at proving that 10 gig network actually exists. You can put the fiber out, you can see the lights on the switch. Unless you've actually proven that you can push 10 gig around that network, you can't really say you've got a 10 gig network installed, configured, and signed off. And then Blue Coat. So these guys have had a real resurgence with the packet shaper. Packet shapers seem to go in fashion a bit, depending on what's sort of going on, and they're certainly very much back in fashion at the moment. The ability to give layer 7 visibility and then more importantly layer 7 control, both inbound and outbound from one device, is a really, really powerful piece of equipment. And it's still, the message of 5 or 6 years ago is still the same message. You're buying bandwidth for a reason. What are you buying that bandwidth for? You need a device that aligns what your business drivers are with that bandwidth, so that the users and applications just can't use it for whatever they want, and so therefore your bandwidth ends up lasting an awful lot longer. So this device, yes, whilst it can throw packets away, it doesn't reduce the traffic. If you do a 1 gig download and you've cramped that into 100K, you're still going to download 1 gig. It's going to take a lot longer. What you're not going to have is you're not going to have that 1 gig download saturating the pipe so that business critical traffic doesn't get the bandwidth that it should have. And that's really what the packet shaper is about, aligning business requirements to bandwidth. And that now works at 10 gig as well. So really it's just the concept of continuous test, visibility and control, and that's what these tools are going to provide. Now what we've done, this event was originally run at Mercedes World, so it was a lot easier to do this in an environment where you had a load of hands in the room, but fortunately GoToWebinar gives us some poll facilities. So we've only got 2 polls, so if you don't mind participating, you will find the answers that everyone's provided straight back to you. So I'm going to launch this first poll here, which there's actually 2 questions here. The first one is, how many of you guys have actually rolled out 10 gig? You'll see that in your question box on the right-hand side. If you can just answer those for me. You should get a live update of what everyone's voting. So thank you very much. So far we've got 60, 80, nearly a clean sweep of respondents. So yeah, so 75% of you guys have rolled out 10 gig already. Thank you very much for that. And then the next one is the follow-on to this. What have you rolled it out for? So let's just launch this one. And it's just what people are rolling that out for. So is it onto the core network? Have you got servers connected on it? Are you doing that between physical sites? So hopefully you've got that poll as well. Let's give a few seconds there to see what the responses are. Probably should have given the ability to do multiple ticks on that, but okay, that's good. Okay, so 67% on the core network. We did the Mercedes World event. We actually had quite a few customers that had rolled it out between sites, which was interesting. But no one's done that today. Okay. Well, you can get the idea. Hopefully, you've got some useful insight as to what the we've got 15 people on the webinar today. What they're all rolling that out. What they're rolling out for. So core network tends to be the answer. So I should just close that off. So cost, what are the drivers? Well, cost is certainly becoming more affordable, but as the technology matures, the cost is going to come down. We've certainly seen significant limited adoption in enterprise, predominantly down to cost or business drivers. But the actual one of the technical challenges is that the test visibility and control becomes a lot more complex, and actually more importantly, it costs a lot more money. Nothing is really cheap at 10 gig. Yeah, business drivers, network refreshes, virtualization projects, business continuity, and DR and backup are the largest drivers that we've seen. The setup today in our lab looks very much like this. What we've got here is we've got an Axon device at the bottom, and that's actually going through our 10 gig Blue Coat Shaper into the Netropy device, and then actually it's back into the same Axon on this particular environment, but you can generate tests to other Axon devices, or you can generate it to your same test. This has got a pair of 10 gig ports. To capture the traffic, we've actually got a fiber tap in here, and that's taking a feed of that traffic, and it's actually putting it into our portable 10 gig Gigastore. They do rack mount versions, or they do portables. We've got a 1 and 10 gig portable device, which is very useful. So you'll see all of that. We'll see all of that in a bit. If by the way, Mike Pelby's on the call as well. If you've got specific things you'd like to see on this demo, then by all means, please do pop them into the chat boxes, and we'll try and accommodate questions or additional bits of demo for those that want to see that. So it kind of makes sense to start off with the Axon product. So this is a traffic generator. It's very simple. It's designed. They even have concepts of playlists and tracks. So they try to very Applefy it, if there is such a word. But the concept is here. It's really straightforward to use. They have a load of pre-canned tests depending on what you're trying to do. Network infrastructure test, a network device test, or specific application tests. They're not quite there yet, but we should be getting into some one-arm testing, and that is where the device is one end and the actual application is another. They're not there yet, but if you've got specific questions of what you'd like to do with Axon, then it's probably best we get a one-on-one session where you can discuss your requirements exactly. But one of the things we're doing on this is a very straightforward, effectively a bit blast. We're going to load the traffic up, we can mark it, we can do all sorts of things to do basic quals tests, etc. I've got one loaded up here already to save the config process, but I can talk you through that. At this basis, I literally select the traffic I'm generating from, generating to. I can put in IP information of the source and destination ranges I want to test to, and then actually I can then drag in. These are your playlists here. I can actually go into here and specify what the traffic profile looks like. So, for example, I could just drop in some 1518 and 1280, and I can then mix. I can mix the amount. And this is very much, as I said, a sort of a layer 2, layer 3 test. We've got other tests we can do which are specifically application related. So if it's real application traffic between the two ports, such as voice, video, HTTP, or whatever, and that we can do one of those later on if people have specific interests. But what I want to do with this test is really just load it up and see what happens. So I can go down here. I can type in the amount of bandwidth I want to play with. What I've actually got on here is I've actually got two tests. I've got a test up here that's doing 5 gig at 1518 byte size, and I've got another test also doing 5 gig 1518, but I can put different quals markings on. So I can play around with that if that's the sort of thing I want to be able to do. But at this level, what I'm just going to do is just load this up. You just stand back, press the play button, and just let this test run. The test run by default for a minute. We're going to load this up, and what we can do is we can look at the other products and see these tests going through them. So let's just see here. Okay, so the test is kicked in, and there we go, straight away. The test has ramped up to 10 gig. And if I now go into the NetGP device, let's just jump into the Packet Shaper first. Packet Shaper, straight away, look, is running at outbound traffic at 10 gig. I can go in here, and this is very much a layer 2 bit blast, so let's wait for this to kick in. It's recognized down there, current bits per second. I can go and look at the graphs, etc. But that test is running away. And I'm able to prove now that the network is delivering 10 gig, which is what I would expect it to do. So let's just finish that off here. Once we've got that, I can go in here and I can look at the bandwidth consumed. I can look at packet loss. I can look at the latency, 8 milliseconds. I can look at the jitter elements of that. Now what I'm going to do again is I'm now going to go back in and I'm going to, this is my NetGP device. Let's just load that up again. Seem to have lost connection to the console. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run the emulation on. And what I've got here is set up a 10 gig network, 10 gig in, 10 gig out. I'm running at 80 milliseconds of round trip, and I've got 10% packet loss on the network. So I'm now just going to enable this, which is now on. You can see the test originally got picked up on here. If I now change the graph to the 10 gig WAN circuit I've configured, I'm going to run that test again. Let's wait for that to kick in. And here we go. So this time traffic is matching to that path, 10 gig. We can go in here and we can now see the amount of transmitted data, which is going out at 10 gig, and the amount of received data is about 10% less, so it's running at about 9 gig. So the opposite device is losing 10% of the traffic on the way, and there are the drops. So I'm now able to understand how my application behaves in an environment where things are a little bit different. And for those of you that want to recreate real-world scenarios, I'm just making mine up as we go along here. There's a really useful tool that comes with these devices. There's two model types. There's Linktree and NetGP. This one here enables you to take a real-world scenario. So I'm just pinging Google's DNS server, and it's just giving me the instant response off our wireless and then our 40 meg internet connection. I can profile that for 20 seconds, a minute, an hour, a day if I wanted to. What I can then do is then stop that, record that file, and I can then load that in under the playback facility here as my WAN condition. So I haven't got to guess what delay I want, what loss rates I want. All you then have to do is put in the amount of bandwidth you want, and away you go. So those are two very quick demos of the Axon device for generating traffic. We should have, there's my summary. I can look at all my packets lost on the different tracks. And the NetRP device. For those of you who don't know too much about the NetRP, I've created a real straightforward 10 gig circuit here. What I could do is I can actually create up to 15 virtual circuits, and then with the packet classifier, classify traffic by IP, VLAN, MAC address, TCP port or combinations, and then assign traffic like a firewall and use different WAN circuits. So you can actually do some pretty clever stuff if you want to get into doing some more advanced testing in a test lab environment. So that's really Apposite and the Axon box. I'm going to move on and briefly look at the packet shaper, which probably means I've actually got two packet shapers here. You've seen the you saw the live one running at 10 gig, and you can create all your reports. But I really want to be able to look at some interesting traffic and show you some of the features of what you can do with a packet shaper. And for that, I've actually got a packet shaper that's also live on our internet circuit. So we're seeing real traffic, real voice over IP going out to our SIP provider, real web browsing traffic, all of our Citrix connections into our cloud provider. And so what I've got here, this is a 40 meg circuit, and I've got the real-time usage of applications both inbound and outbound. And then what I can do is very simply go in and look, again, real-time, but also everything is graphed. So if I want to go and have a look at HTTP usage as an application for the last hour, I can go in here and have a look at this. So it's the same functionality on my 40 meg circuit as it is on my 10 gig circuit. So this just gives us something a bit more interesting to have a look at. But I can also go in and show you that one of the things that's happened, if you haven't seen one of these packet shapers for a while, it is now integrated with all of the Blue Coat functionality. So Blue Coat, I know one of the things they're known for is web filtering. So you can now integrate the packet shaper into the URL rule set. So it's not to deny marketing access to Facebook or social media. This is to say all the traffic is actually classified as this type of web traffic. So I can go in here and say audio video clips, for example, have at a time spiked and consumed all of that bandwidth at 40 meg. I could, for example, now go in and simply put a rule on which says do not go over, partition. Go in here, add a rule that says do not go over 4 meg, and that non-burst rule will mean it won't go over 4 meg. Now, to give you an example of that working, I've got one that is already configured for Apple iTunes. So here we go. We've got iTunes here. Inbound traffic on Apple iTunes, do not go above 2 meg. You can have 2 meg, do not go above it. So how's that rule actually worked? If I go in here and look at Apple iTunes, I can click on here, and I can say partition utilization over the course of a week. And what I would hope to see is that we've not consumed more than 2 meg of Apple iTunes traffic on this network over the course of the week. So yes, you can still download it. You are just not allowed to consume all of the bandwidth. And that's really useful. We've seen a couple of jobs where customers need to be able to do Veeam replications or SAN replications or whatever. And actually they have different rules for different times of the day. So that if they're doing replications between sites, it could be 100 meg, it could be a gig, it could be 10 gig. You can put different rules on that say, during this hour, I need the bandwidth to be used for this, and at this time of the day, I need it to be used for that. And that's what the packet shaper is capable of doing, to give you that kind of layer 7 visibility and control of both traffic inbound and traffic outbound. And what we've also got set up on here for example, is, where is it? There we go. We've got a rule on our voice over IP traffic. So there we go. We've got a high priority folder, and I've dropped all our voice codecs in, and I can now see I've guaranteed it 5 meg, but you can see since this last reset on the 16th of September, we've never consumed more than 834K of outbound voice traffic. So lots of useful things that we can do if you haven't seen a packet shaper before. But the idea is, go in here, can do peak rate. So HTTP health websites in the last hour, 25.6 meg, peak rate. YouTube is spiked at 24.4 flash, and again I can then just click on graphs and see our YouTube usage, and if I wanted to control that, then I can. And then the same for outbound. One of the things I find quite useful is this total bytes. Do total bytes for the week, and you get the general idea of what's going on. Go back to the Sky view, and everything is live in here as well, so I can go to iTunes, click on it, and I can get real time. Hopefully there's nothing going on right now. Okay, so that's really the packet shaper. So that gives us layer 7 visibility and layer 7 control all the way up to 10 gig on a really easy to use interface. The last one is the ability to analyze and understand traffic. So I'm going to go in here and look at the Gigastore. So as I mentioned earlier on, I've got a portable Gigastore here, which is both 1 and 10 gig. And so I'm able to choose between 1 gig or 10 gig over here. So one of the things I'm going to do, and this is a real trick, is just show off the ability to capture, make this screen a little bigger for you here, the ability to capture 10 gig traffic at wire speed. So going to show this off here, do a couple of things as well. I should be able to do, actually I might have to do that one here. If I do statistics, bandwidth utilization in here, chart data is bits per second. Am I looking at the right network card? No, I'm not. I need to look at this network card. I can't do it on that one. There we go. If I now go and do back into the Axon device again, let's turn off emulation. Let's let it run at full 10 gig. I run that test again. This time what we're going to see is we're going to see the traffic go up on the outbound link. So we'll see in one direction because it's a one-way traffic test on here. So you'll see which ones, that's the total at the top, the average of both, and then we'll see the direction it's going in. But also within the capture screen, this gives you a captured window here versus any drops. So hopefully what we're going to see is, as it was working here, look, is the ability to capture traffic at 10 gig wire speed without dropping frames. From a portable unit, this particular device has got 4 terabytes of storage on, so it's a first in, first out buffer. Let's go back and look at here. There we go. So we can see the direction of the traffic. It's running at 10 gig. So the average obviously is 5 for in and out. We'll let that run. Press update on here. And then what we can do to actually rewind to a moment in time, let's let that finish doing what it's doing, is I've got these time windows here, so I can just go back and choose a moment in time I want to analyze, make the sliders bigger. This is showing off at bits per second here. And what I can do is I can go and look at live reports. So if I want to just pull off some information as to, let's make this a little bit bigger so you can see what's going on. Where's my reports updates? Come on. There we go. So that actually sent out 35 gig. That was the MAC address. Or I can look at the information at layer 2, layer 3. And what I can do is then go in and press Analyze all data. And what this is now doing is it's pulling off the capture from the disks. And you can see just how many packets that really involved and how quickly it's actually doing it. So already we're at 67%, and that's 5 million packets. And to give you an idea, I've done captures on this device of up to sort of 500 million packets over a sort of an hour period on a busy 10 gig network. Now, of course, the problem with this is it's not particularly interesting data because it's a bit blast. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let this finish and just give you an idea. So we're nearly up to 20 million packets. And then what I'll do is I'll jump onto the 1 gig interface, which is looking at our wide area network connection, and we can just data mine some more interesting traffic, voice calls, etc., and look at voice quality and bits and pieces. But it's the concept of being able to rewind to a moment in time. So when someone says, oh, we had a problem yesterday at 3 o'clock, or on Tuesday at 5 in the morning, if you know the IP address, if you know the server, the client, you can build any number of complex filters. Not even that complex, to be honest. You can just go in and you can tick. I'll do it on the other interface where we've got more interesting traffic to look at. But you can just select checkboxes, whatever. So that capture was 24.5 million packets, and they're all here. So like I say, not particularly interesting because it's just effectively a bit blast with some CWAS markings in. If I go and have a look at the 1 gig version, which is looking at our internet connection, I can go and look at, I don't know, let's go for the last, where are we now, 11:30. Let's do the last half an hour. If I press Update Reports down here, I'm seeing the amount of traffic we're using. It's going through our Palo Alto firewall. We've got HTTPS as our predominant traffic type, HTTP, POP3, CIFS. I can go and look at IP stations that are doing the largest conversations. That's my MacBook, probably talking to GoToMeeting. I can go and look at the UDP conversations. I can actually drill down from here and do I can create filters just straight from this report. Or alternatively, I can go and look at things in here and start building up filters by using these checkboxes. Or largest conversations, go and sort on bytes total, click on that, and then again away we go. But what I'm going to do, because I don't know what I'm looking for on this particular example, I'm just going to go for Analyze, Analyze All, and let that pull that off the disks, and we can see what's going on. So already, even on a fairly small network, I think there's about 20 people in the Abingdon office today, that's pulled out 2 million packets in a half an hour period. So how do I go through 2 million packets and try and find something useful? Well, I can go into first of all, I can go to Summary here, and this will try and tell me about network delays, slow responses, too fast retransmissions, etc. Or I can go down to things like TCP events. So what we've got here is all the people that are in the office that are attending the this GoToWebinar session. If we go down here, that's Mike Sessions. It's my MacBook on here. Just trying to find my yeah, there we go. Expert City, which is the GoToMeeting location. I can look at the client-side responses. So this is on average. It looks at the client side, which in this case is my machine. It's taking on average 2.3 seconds. 2.3 seconds from the server. It's just putting updates back and forth. How the application works. Or this might be the chat box, to be honest. There's also chat boxes and bits and pieces. And I can now look at the network round trip for this was 81.5 milliseconds. And was that the network on our side? Well, no. From me to where we did the packet capture, which is effectively a wireless network and a firewall, it was sub 1 millisecond. But from the firewall out to GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar and back took 81 milliseconds. So all of the delay was outside of our network. so the internet or their network at the other end. So we can go in here, we can look at network round trip, we can go and look at anything we like and start looking at things in more detail. So if I take Mike's session here, for example, you can right-click and you can do connection dynamics, and you can start to see the session initiates. We've got the SYN, SYN, ACK, ACK, and then this is an SSL conversation. If you've got SSL certificates, you can put the SSL cert in, decode that back to HTTP. And we can do that for pretty much any application. We can even go in and do reconstruct the application if we had, say, had the keys, or as one of the applications that we recognize, so we can put the key in. Or alternatively, the same for UDP. And what's probably most useful, and what this product gets used for an awful lot, is for voice over IP analysis. So I've got the calls that we've captured at this part of the network. I just realized where we're doing this particular capture from, it's only capturing the calls between the offices. So we're not seeing it goes to a different part of the network here. So we're only capturing the calls that go between Abingdon and Daventry office. So I can see here now, I can see the calls. I can go straight down and look at the MOS scores. This call's been shown up as red. I can look at the setup time, the duration of the call, 8 minutes 35. I can look at the overall MOS score, which is nearly 4.2, which is fine. But actually, within that call, it's tripped up some parameters. So we have seen, look, some jitter. The average jitter was about 60 milliseconds, but it has spiked as high as 370. Now, if this call was a particular problem, what I'm actually able to do is to go down here. Won't work particularly well, but I can actually play that back. So I can save that off and play it back and actually understand what their call was like from a call quality perspective. There's 1,000,001 things this box does. I was hoping just to show off a few of the things that might be interesting. So if I want to look at layer 3 pairs live, for example, we can do that and so on and so forth. But the outset of the brief for this session today, everyone, was really to give you an idea on our take on how to analyze, how to test, how to troubleshoot, and how to prioritize traffic over a 10 gig network. So at this point, I've talked for the best part of 40 minutes. I'll open the floor up to questions via the chat box if we've got any. So thanks so much for your time. Do we have any questions from the floor? Okay. Well, in that case, if we haven't got any questions, then I'll say thank you very much for your time. I'm going to wrap this up now. And if you want a specific demo that's a lot more in depth, like I said, this was really just a taste of what these products can do, then please contact your account manager, and we'll do a far more in-depth one based on what your requirements are. So thank you very much for your time.